Welcome. In this video, we're going to look at accessibility on the iPhone and iPads. It's going to be identical, if not very similar to each other on the iPhone and the iPads. So to get to accessibility, we're going to go to Settings, and we're going to scroll down until we see the accessibility person. In the last video, we did vision. So in this video, we're going to focus on physical and motor. We're going to start with this touch. So assistive touch allows you to use your iPhone if you have difficulty touching the screen or if you require adaptive accessories. So if we turn that on, we see that there are lots of customizations that we can make. We can even create our own gestures in here. Some of my friends have created their own gestures, not because they need assistive touch for adaptive purposes, but just because they prefer to use their phone in a specific way. My caveat with creating new gestures with your clients is that some of them are going to have difficulty remembering what that gesture was, how to get to it, etc. So make sure that you're recording those settings in a place that's accessible to both of you. If they're going to be asking you for assistance, it's going to be helpful to have that available. Idle occupancy, or OPA, I can't even say that word right now, but when the screen gets a little bit darker but doesn't turn all the way off, you can change what that occupancy is going to be. Pointer devices. So if you're someone who uses, or your client is someone who needs to use a device, mouse keys, if you want the keyboard to always show on the screen or always show menu, these are all places to look into. So you can add some Bluetooth devices here for, say, your keyboard or mouse. If you're going to use a mouse key, look through these settings here. Have the initial delay set to where is comfortable and the maximum speed to where is comfortable for you. Perform touch gestures. Simulate a finger when performing gestures with a pointer device. Again, if you are going to be using a device, this can be helpful, but it can also be confusing it's been confusing to a lot of my clients. So I turn off, like if they're going to use a pointer device on their iPhone, we're just not going to do gestures. I'd rather them click around and we have a set path for them than have to remember a set of gestures or accidentally turn something on because they accidentally did the wrong gesture, or they did a gesture when they were using a different tool. Anyways, you get my point. You can use some game controllers. I have not met anyone who has done this and done it well enough to keep it as their primary mode of use. But it is something that's there if that's something that you or your client wants to try out. If you're working with someone with some disabilities, but they are really enraptured with their games and their gaming system and their gaming device, you could try this as a way to help them navigate on a phone. The dwell control, so that's how long you are holding something in order for it to become active. Right now, our fallback action is a tap, but you can change that dwell control and the movement tolerance. Hot corners is dwelling in the corner of whatever it is you're trying to interact with, and it actually work for you instead of hitting that smaller target. This can be helpful to some people. It can also create some more accidents. So this is one that we sometimes turn on for our clients, and then as they are interfacing with their preferred apps and tools and things, they decide that they do or don't like it. They also will say, I tend to hit the top right and the bottom right because that's the thumb that I'm using, or something along those lines. And so we leave those on and turn off the lefts as an example. And you can change the seconds, how long they have to touch it for. This is helpful for people who also feel like they brush their phone a lot, and their phone is so touchy. You can increase this to, you could do 1 second instead of 2 seconds, just long enough for them to be noticing that they are clicking it, but not long enough to be like, oh my goodness, why isn't this working? And then, smash that button. So we're still in touch. That was assistive touch. There's reachability, 3D haptic touch, which is when you press on the display using different degrees of pressure, it reveals different previews. So a light tap versus a hard tap versus squeezing your phone, those types of things. Touch accommodations. So if you're having trouble using the touchscreen, you can adjust the following settings to change how the screen will respond to touches. Let's take a look. Touch accommodations, you're just turning this whole thing on or off, and then the settings that exist underneath here include the duration, hold duration, ignore repeat. So I just talked about the people who smash the button. It will ignore those additional taps, it's been helpful for some of my clients. They will press so many times that they accidentally press the next page that comes up, and it takes them to an entirely new page. So ignoring that repeat can be helpful for some people. Tap assistance, we keep that off for our device, but you can use initial touch location or use final touch location in that ignoring repeat. You can shake the phone to undo something. If you tend, though, to shake your iPhone, you should disable this. Let's say you throw it in your backpack and you're running or something like that. Those motions can make your phone feel like it's being shaken, and it will undo some things that you just did, and that could be problematic for a number of reasons, depending on how you use your phone, what tools you have on here. Vibration. Vibration is when the switch is off, all the vibration on your iPhone is disabled, including those for earthquake, tsunamis, and other emergency alerts. There is another area where you can turn on and off vibrations for different types of notifications. So if there's still something that you would appreciate your phone vibrating for, I would leave this alone and we'll change it in those other sections. So that was touch. That was just the first one. This is kind of like the last, like with vision, where the first one had the most options. And as we go through, it gets a little faster. So the switch control, of course, is when you have to use a switch device to use this screen. If you use a switch, you can set the number, you can add recipes, you can adjust your scanning style, auto scanning time, pause on the first item, loops, repeats, tap behaviors, all of those things. I recommend, if you're going to use switch control on your phone or iPad, that it pretty much mirrors how you're using it on a computer or other device. There's a lot of settings here, and people with switches often already know what works for them and what doesn't. So let them, as with any section, let your client be your guide in what's working and what's not working, but especially for that one. Voice control, pretty straightforward with this same, very similar settings as what we had in the other voice-related thing. Back. The home button. So different people like to use the home button for different things. And right now, my click speed is default, and the hold and press gets me Siri. If I wanted to use classic voice control, which currently is turned off on this phone, I could change my press and hold of that home button to voice control, and that would be my shortcut. My clients who do use voice control and other shortcuts really like having that shortcut with that home screen or that home button as a press and hold. So I encourage you to try that out. And then rest finger to open. So hold the iPhone with the Touch ID without having to press the home button. Can be helpful for some. Two more left. The Apple TV remote, directional buttons. If we turn this on, it will act as that remote. And then keyboards. You can switch how your keyboard is accessed. Sticky keys, lowercase keys, all of that good stuff with your keyboard is here. I do want to show you one thing. Let's say you or your client forget exactly where you can change keyboard settings. At the top here, when you first come into settings, if you just start typing keyboard, you'll see that there are keyboard settings in sounds, and there's keyboard settings in general, and there's keyboard settings in accessibility. Now, this could be overwhelming to some people to look for something like keyboard and see so many different options and not know exactly where to look. Generally speaking, we start with general, and then we move to and through accessibility if there are additional things that they want to do on their phone but don't seem to be available in the general settings. You can see that there's adjust the zoom level, hide. So there's these other keyboard settings that came up in other areas like spoken content and not just this keyboard feature. So if there's ever something that you are looking to adjust on your phone, say the keyboard, then you can, oops, sorry about that. Snooze. Then you can search through that to adjust the settings. All right, we'll see you in the next video.